Hey, welcome. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. This hour of The Ben Shapiro Show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Don't like big tech and the government spying on you. Visit expressvpn.com/Ben. Well, our entire society was dropped on its head as a baby. That is the only rationale I can give for the bizarre notion that has now been promulgated far and wide that there are more than two sexes, that human beings come in a wide variety and spectrum of sexes. In fact, and this has not just become a talking point on the left, this has become mandatory. If you write a book suggesting that boys and girls exist as biological entities, you will be banned from Amazon. If you go so far as to post a sign suggesting that there are just two sexes, this means you're a bad person. In fact, if you even ask for a definition of a boy or a girl, and someone says, well, no, I'm not going to give you a definition because it's just too complicated, and you say, well, that's not a definition, then you will be canceled. That is the way things work now. So, to take the latest stupidity in our society, there is a piece of legislation. It's called the Equality Act. It's a very bad piece of legislation. We've talked about it at length on the program before. The Equality Act basically takes the ruling in a recent Supreme Court case that suggests that gender identity is a part of the Civil Rights Act, which it obviously is not, and then extends that to virtually every area of American life. So now, for example, you would have to let boys into girls' locker rooms all across the land. Now, under the Equality Act, there would be no religious exemption for not going along with transgender ideology. If a boy wanted to identify as a girl in an Orthodox Jewish day school, you would have to do nothing about it because otherwise you'd be in violation of federal law. It's a violation of religious freedom. It's a violation of freedom of association. They will come after 501c3s. It's a disastrous act. Beyond that, it also has pretty significant ramifications for abortion law because the Equality Act basically suggests that if you have a woman who identifies as a man, you have to give her any surgery that you would want to have, up to and including an abortion, because after all, abortion only affects women. So the Equality Act is a mess. I mean, it's a complete mess. It is an authoritarian cram down for sure. All right. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is the congresswoman from Georgia, the lady who is QAnon curious and has said many crazy things in the past, including weird stuff about Jewish space lasers. Suffice it to say, I'm not a Marjorie Taylor Greene fan, but she is not the problem with the story we are about to tell here. Marjorie Taylor Greene suggested that the Equality Act is a bad and stupid and counterproductive piece of legislation, because it is. And a congresswoman named Marie Newman then decided that she was going to place a transgender flag outside of Marjorie Taylor Greene's office because our Congress is just a bunch of small children who smack each other in the grill all the time. That's all they are. They don't do anything for a living except pass a bunch of crappy legislation that affects your life and then try and win points on social media. So, Congresswoman Marie Newman, she walks over to Marjorie Taylor Greene's office, which is just across the hall from hers, and she takes a giant transgender flag and just sticks it outside of Marjorie Taylor Greene's office. Now, that seems like rather childish behavior. You can have a difference of opinion on this sort of stuff without saying that you are going to, post on Instagram, you being a brave slay queen and going over there and you need to see this transgender flag. Newman said in a video tweet, thought we'd put our transgender flag so she can look at it every time she opens her door. Don't worry, it's not an imposition, guys. There is no imposition here. I mean, you have to believe what we believe and you have to look at the things we want you to look at, but there's no imposition at all. Okay, so Marjorie Taylor Greene then did something that, frankly, I have no problem with. She took a sign that said, there are two genders, male and female, trust the science, and she plastered it up next to this other lady's office. And she tweeted out, our neighbor, Representative Marie Newman, wants to pass the so-called Equality Act to destroy women's rights and religious freedoms. We thought we'd put up ours so she can look at it every time she opens her door. And people went nuts. How dare she? How dare she? This is an attack on Marie Newman. And the lie that they are saying is that this particular sign is an attack on Marie Newman because Marie Newman has a transgender daughter, meaning a son who believes that he is a woman. Okay, well, nothing in that video says anything about Marie Newman's kid. I don't know if Marjorie Taylor Greene has ever said anything else about Marie Newman's kid, but in any case, the notion that there are two genders, male and female, happens to be correct. Now, I know there's a whole wing of gender ideology that suggests that gender is a spectrum. And the way they get to gender as a spectrum is they say there are a lot of traits that are associated with femininity and masculinity, and some men happen to be more effeminate and some women happen to be more masculine. And these are gender identities, and they're completely disconnected from biology. Number one, not completely disconnected from biology. Number two, still doesn't make you a boy or a girl. Okay, the fact is that you can be a very effeminate man and still be a man. You can be a very masculine woman and still be a woman. There are only two sexes. And by the way, if gender were not a binary question, then you would not be tending toward male or female on the spectrum. In order for any spectrum to exist, you have to have poles to the spectrum. So what exactly are the poles? Male and female. And then you can have a mix of characteristics, but that does not change the underlying biology. Gender identity is a bunch of nonsense that is come up with by people who wish to ignore the biology. Now, listen, it's a free country. You can ask people to identify you however you want. You can say that you are a Z or an attack helicopter or anything. It's a free country. People are also free to say no to that. But the notion that gender is completely disconnected from biology is completely ascientific. The notion that gender exists on a spectrum such that there are literally infinite numbers of genders, right? Because if it's a spectrum, then spectrums contain an infinite number of colors. You can literally parse every single color, right? There is no absolute number at the end of that line. And yet we are told that there are 158 genders. I mean, it's all silliness, and it has nothing to do with the world of reality. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is very bad for having clapped back at all of this. And our entire society is supposed to buy into this. So much so that we are supposed to accept as a possibility the idea that small children declaring themselves to be of a different gender than their biological sex, that those small children ought to be able to get surgery and hormonal treatment despite their parents saying no. This is something that the left has actually been pushing. It already exists in Britain. It exists in certain gender clinics in the United States. And it is a disaster area. It is child abuse. It is government-promoted child abuse if the government is saying that parents can't even step in and stop this sort of thing from happening. And when I say that it's being promoted, I mean that a person who is now being nominated for the Undersecretary of Health and Human Services, Rachel Levine, who is most famous for being a person who shipped COVID-positive patients back into nursing homes in Pennsylvania and then took his, because he is a biological man but identifies as a transgender woman. Dr. Levine took his, because I only use biological pronouns on the show, took his mother out of the nursing home at the same time. Okay, that's what this person is famous for. So this person was being questioned for confirmation, because this is a Senate confirmable position. And Dr. Rand Paul, an actual medical doctor, asked a pretty simple question. So, do you think that children should be given transgender hormones, gender hormones that reshape their gender, their biology? Do you think that children should be given puberty blockers? And the answer from Rachel Levine was maybe. So this is somebody who wants to be a high-ranking member of the federal government overtly endorsing the possibility of child abuse. The answer here has to be no, but it isn't no. Here's what it sounded like.
I'm alarmed that you won't say with certainty that minors should not have the ability to make the decision to take hormones that will affect them for the rest of their life. Will you make a more firm decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field, and if confirmed to the position of Assistant Secretary of Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff.
That is not an answer. The answer was not, if you want to confirm me, then later I'll come to your office and talk to you about it. It's, you are being confirmed right in the now. So, what is your perspective as a person who will be one of the several high-ranking healthcare members in the United States? What is your perspective on whether children should be allowed to get puberty blockers in spite of their parents' objections? And Dr. Rachel Levine says, well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. This is pathetic. It is an endorsement of child abuse. The possibility is an endorsement of child abuse. But again, it buys into a complete and overt anti-scientific lie, which is that gender and sex are completely non-connected, and also that there are more than two sexes. There are not more than two sexes. There are people who are intersex. That is a genetic condition. Okay, the basic idea that because some people have genetic conditions that are anomalous, that those genetic conditions represent a third sex is bizarre beyond all belief. It's like saying that because some people are born without a 10th finger, there is a species of human that has 9 fingers. No, the norm is for people to have 10 fingers, and then some people don't have 10 fingers. The norm is for there to be boys and girls, and then some people have intersex anomalies. That does not constitute a gender spectrum, nor does it constitute a separate sex. This is all idiocy. In fact, the procreative abilities of the human species rests on the biological dichotomy between men and women. We all know this, but I suppose we're supposed to gouge out our own prefrontal cortex so as to engage in this kind of patent stupidity. Well, the good news is we can always go to Demi Lovato for advice on it. We'll explain in just one second. Our wisest people are people like Demi Lovato. She knows science. We'll get to this in a second. First, I'm a rather unique fellow, correct? I'm truly one of a kind, which is why I sleep on a mattress designed specifically for me, and you can too. Helix Sleep built a quiz. It takes 2 minutes to complete. They use the answers to match your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. If you like a mattress that's really soft or firm, if you sleep on your side or your back or your stomach, if you sleep really hot, with Helix, there's a specific mattress for each and everybody's unique taste. Like moi. Just go to helixsleep.com/Shapiro. They will match you to a mattress that'll give you the best sleep of your life. I sleep on a Helix mattress. You don't need to take my word for it. Helix is rated best mattress of 2019 by both GQ and Wired magazine. Everything is made right here in America. They've got a 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. If you try Helix and you don't love it, they'll pick it up right for you, no problem. Right now, Helix is offering up to $200 off mattress orders. Get up to $200 off at helixsleep.com/Shapiro. You know, last night I was away from home for the backstage, and I was not on my Helix Sleep mattress. I will say it had dire effects on me. I need my Helix Sleep mattress to sleep. Once you go Helix, you're not going to go back. Go check out helixsleep.com/Shapiro. They're offering up to $200 off your mattress order. Well, the good news is that we have an entire media infrastructure that is designed to cram down the lie that boys and girls are not categories that exist. And that, in fact, there's a wide range and spectrum of genders, and you can pick your own. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure book. Demi Lovato just put out a 9-page Instagram post saying that gender reveal parties are transphobic. You see, it's transphobic to determine whether your child is a boy or a girl, prenatally, or anytime afterward. I mean, you right now listening to this, you don't even know what gender you are. Tomorrow, it could be different. In fact, we don't know what gender you are until you die. Right? At that point, we'll know what gender you have been over the course of your life. Because it could change at any moment. You just don't know. You know, you can identify however you want. It is completely subjective. Well, now, the irony, of course, is that after you die, then we can absolutely tell your gender simply by looking at your biology. We can dig you up in 100 years, look at your bones, and determine whether you were a boy or a girl. But, of course, when you're alive, it's all malleable. Because we live in this bizarre Cartesian universe in which your gender identity is free-floating from your biology, which, of course, is patently crazy. Demi Lovato says there are boys with vaginas and girls with penises, which, no. No, there are not, Demi Lovato. Lovato claimed that throughout the lengthy post that transgender activists dislike gender reveal parties because they divert from reality. So Lovato and other activists, according to Chrissy Clark, writing for Daily Wire, reality is the concept that humans are born without any concept of gender. Lovato also claimed that basing sex off of genitalia is inconsistent with science. Oh, is it now? So here's the thing. It happens to be sex and genital formation. They tend to be consistent in like 99.6% of cases, something like that. So it's a pretty good indicator. It's a pretty good indicator. There are a few anomalous situations, again, intersex anomalies. That does not mean boys and girls don't exist, or that you can't use as a pretty damned good guide as to sex, the actual genital formation. But, says Demi Lovato, it's both insincere and incorrect to pretend that gender reveal parties are not transphobic. You can't have your proverbial pink-blue binary cake and eat it too. This isn't about political correctness. It's just correct. We condemn gender reveals not because of our identity, but because of reality. Lovato continued by claiming that the gender binary fuels transphobia in American life, and that transphobes view non-trans people as more natural and organic. Well, no, gender dysphoria may be a naturally occurring condition. That does not mean that you are actually a member of the sex to which you claim membership. So we're just going to go along with this nonsense, and we're going to treat it as though it's established fact is the part that's truly amazing. And every aspect of our society will go along with this pure insanity. Okay, listen to this one. This is pretty great. The Associated Press has decided that Mr. Potato Head needed to die. Mr. Potato Head has now gone gender neutral. They've stripped Mr. Potato Head of his maleness. Now, I will admit to you that Mr. Potato Head was gender nonconforming. No chromosomes, no genitals, no secondary sex characteristics unless you slap that mustache on him. But with that said, the notion that we now have to make all toys gender neutral, Barbie can be a boy. Forget about Barbie being a doctor. Let's get really woke. Barbie can be Ken. They are the same. Okay, toy makers have been updating their classic brands to appeal to kids today. Barbie has shed its blonde image, now comes in multiple skin tones and body shapes. I noticed again, they have not made Barbie male. That will be the exciting moment. But I'm very excited that now Hasbro will no longer produce Mr. Potato Head. Mrs. Potato Head, by the way, is the hardest hit, right? She doesn't exist either. The new gender-neutral name will be just Potato Head. The happiest man in America today is Brian Stelter, who now has an actual toy line named after him, which is really exciting stuff. Bigotry annihilated. Bigotry has been ended. And I'm just excited, frankly, that little boys and girls or children really of any gender all across the fruited plains can now look at a potato head and dream of growing up to be a plastic spheroid with interchangeable parts. It doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, you too can dream of one day being a brown lumpen object that people stick bizarre interchangeable pieces into. What an amazing world we're creating for our children. Oh yeah, and also if your kid feels like, blocking their own puberty or generally mutilating themselves, then go for it. Yep. Everything's going great, guys. When I said our entire society was dropped on its head as a baby, it was. Alrighty, coming up, we'll get to more from the woke files. First, when you are running a business, HR issues can absolutely kill you. Wrongful termination suits, minimum wage requirements, labor regulations, and HR manager salaries aren't cheap. They're an average of $70,000 a year. Bambee is spelled B-A-M-B-E-E and was created specifically for small business. You can get a dedicated HR manager, craft HR policy, and maintain your compliance all for just $99 a month. With Bambee, you can change HR from your biggest liability to your biggest strength. Your dedicated HR manager is available by phone, email, or real-time chat. From onboarding determinations that customize your policies to fit your business and help you manage your employees day to day, all for just $99 a month. They're month to month, no hidden fees, you can cancel anytime. You didn't start your business because you wanted to spend time on HR compliance. Let Bambee help. Get your free HR audit today. Head on over to Bambee.com/Ben right now to schedule that free HR audit. That is Bambee.com/Ben, spelled BAMBEE.com/Ben. Go check them out right now. Make sure all your HR issues are in order, because if they're not, it can really, really come back to bite you. Go check out Bambee.com/Ben for that free HR audit today. Already coming up. At the same time that we say that there is no such thing as sex and gender is completely arbitrary, also, we're now saying that straight actors cannot play gay characters. So, perfectly consistent stuff. This is the Ben Shapiro Show. Honest to goodness, I really can't get over the fact that they just killed Mr. Potato Head for no reason. I mean, Mr. Potato Head was just sitting there minding his own business. Then they're like, you know what? You're now a gender non-binary potato. You know, like a regular potato. Maybe it's like Pinocchio. Maybe Mr. Potato Head wished to be a regular potato, but in becoming a regular potato, he became asexual. Because potatoes aren't boys or girls. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot here to unpack. Sadly, in other breaking news, it now turns out that Mrs. Potato Head has been killed off and replaced with an asexual can of Pringles. So that is heavily processed. So that is very sad stuff. But, pour one out for the Potato Heads. They had a long, happy marriage. And, one day, we'll remember them. We'll remember the good times. Remember that time that you flushed Mr. Potato Head's nose down the toilet when you were a kid. And just think about those days. I'm sorry, everything is so stupid. Everything is so unbelievably stupid. But in other stupid news, now it turns out that we are now going to really do this thing where you can only play characters in movies and TV shows that you actually are. So the New York Times has another one of these insane, interminable pieces about how only gay people should play gay roles. Which, by the way, is weird because I am fully aware of gay people playing straight roles. In fact, I am perfectly aware that Elliot Page, who's a man, just as much of a man as I am, by the way, according to the latest scientific pseudo-garbage studies from woke Twitter, Elliot Page and I are exactly the same. We are exactly the same. Elliot Page is a man with a vagina, and I am also a man with not a vagina. And so we're the same. And yet, both of us are men, but only one of us can play a biological woman on that Netflix show. Because Elliot Page gets to continue playing a woman, even though Elliot Page, being a man, is just as much a man as any other man. Mr. T and Elliot Page, exactly the same. So, but Mr. T is not allowed to play a woman. So this is what we know. We now know that a woman who says she is a man is allowed to play a biological woman. But a straight man is not allowed to play a gay man. And also, a biological woman is not allowed to play, I'm not kidding you, a biological woman is not allowed to play a biological woman who believes she's a man. So a straight, non-trans woman, a cis woman, cannot play a trans man, even though a trans man is a biological woman. Are you following me here? Did I lose you a while ago? Is it all over? Did you fall over and hit your head? Because this is all insane. Yep, that's what I thought. I think this is part of the issue here, by the way. I think that the issue here is just confuse people beyond belief. So you're like, fine, do whatever you want. Just leave me the hell alone. Everything, so much of that is this. Just, it's so tiring. It's so tiring and so stupid. And so Americans are like, do whatever you want. Just please, can you stop bothering me? The problem is they're never going to stop bothering you. And when I mean the woke left. They're never going to stop bothering you. They will just keep shifting the standards. They'll move on to the next crazy thing. And eventually they'll just get to the part where they come after your kids. They're kind of already there. This is the Ben Shapiro Show. This is the Ben Shapiro Show. So, the COVID policy pursued by the Biden administration continues to be just pretty disastrous. I mean, they really have no rational policy they are pursuing at this point. We all know that the vaccines have to get out there. And we all know that the science suggests that once you have the vaccine, you should be getting back to regular life. In fact, even MSNBC's disease expert was out there saying, yeah, once you've had the vaccine, you should be able to see and hug your grandkids. But I was informed by Dr. Anthony Fauci, the greatest of all doctors except for Dr. Jill, that you couldn't. That we have to lock ourselves inside until the end of time. Here was an expert on MSNBC of all places saying, yeah, once you've had the vaccine, it's time to get back to regular life.
I think he's right. We have to learn to live with this virus in a way that we haven't to date. Imagine an entire country vaccinated and still telling people that they have to isolate, they have to quarantine, they have to continue to wear their mask, and it's not going to happen. Grant you that it doesn't mean that everybody who's vaccinated is going to be perfectly protected, but we have to move on. We're not there yet, but I think over the course of the upcoming months as vaccine increases in our communities, we need to try to get back to that new normal.
Yeah, that would be the ideal, but apparently we're not even going to try that. It's pretty amazing. The Washington Post has a piece today about how we are about to drop $50 million in donated funds on an ad council-backed strategy called It's Up to You to get people to take the vaccine. According to the Washington Post, for tens of millions of Americans still unsure about taking COVID vaccine shots, advertising industry experts and government scientists have a new message. It's up to you. That message and accompanying ad campaign is to be unveiled Thursday across TV and on digital video, social media, and audio platforms like Pandora and Spotify. It will include messaging tailored toward Black and Hispanic communities where studies have found a lack of trust about the COVID vaccines and their long-term effects. The ads and related events will feature celebrities, scientists, and members of the faith community. The campaign will further encourage those skeptical of the vaccines to visit a new website for the latest information on the safety and availability of vaccines. I think this will be wildly successful because if there's one thing we know, it's that ad council campaigns in the past have done yeoman's work. Like, have you ever seen those big billboards off the side of the freeway that said, be a dad? You know how many dudes were driving around and they just knocked up their girlfriend? And they're like, you know what? I'm ditching my girlfriend and the kid. I don't care. And then they saw that billboard and they're like, holy, that's a billboard. And it says to be a dad. I'm doing it. I'm doing it, man. I'm in. There's nothing more useless than a taxpayer-funded ad strategy. It is the stupidest thing in the world. The campaign was overseen by the Ad Council, the nonprofit communications industry group responsible for landmark ads like Smokey the Bear. By the way, how are all those forest fires doing? Those been good lately? And famous public health messages, including "Friends don't let friends drive drunk." They've built It's Up to You as one of the largest publication efforts in U.S. history. Experts at the CDC and prevention closely consulted on the campaign. The CDC's branding will also appear in the ads. Many people currently remain hesitant. According to the AP NORC poll, about 1 in 3 Americans said they definitely would not or probably would not get the vaccine. The poll shows 57% of black Americans saying they have received or plan to get it, compared with 65% of Hispanics and 68% of white Americans. Ad Council researchers found some possible messaging approaches, such as encouraging Americans to be vaccinated because, quote, it's the right thing to do, were rejected as pushy or accusatory in surveyed groups. So, just to get this straight, this is how good these people are at their job. The right thing to do was rejected because it was too pushy. So instead they went with, it's up to you, which is incredibly pushy. I have a better message. Get back to normal life. That is an excellent message. That would be the best message, but they're not going to push that message because they don't want to get back to normal life. Like ever, apparently. They continue to promulgate these theories that we're all going to die of COVID even after the vaccinations. By the way, how are those lockdowns working out? We now have news that California has more deaths than any other state. According to the New York Times, California surpassed 50,000 known COVID deaths on Wednesday. According to New York Times database, California averaged more than 560 deaths a day at its peak in January. It took 10 months for LA County to hit 400,000 cases, but a little more than a month to add another 400,000 from November 30th to January 2nd. On a deaths per million basis, California is clocking in about the same as Florida. The only difference is that Florida really didn't shut down. So well done, everybody. Now, naturally, a lot of the Democratic policy here is tied into broader concerns. A lot of Democratic policy here is tied into broader policy wishes. Right? As Mitch McConnell points out, the Senate minority leader now, he points out that the Washington Democrats continue to promulgate the idea that schools cannot reopen, despite the fact that we all know schools can reopen.
The science shows that in-person schooling can easily be made safe. Private and religious schools and schools in Europe have been open for months. But Washington Democrats have apparently bought into Big Labor's myth that schools cannot reopen without even more federal funding, even though their own plan would only spend about 5% of the money this fiscal year.
I mean, obviously, that happens to be true, but it's not about COVID at this point. We know it's not about COVID. They have to prolong the belief that we are in crisis mode forever so that they can get done what they want to get done, like a higher minimum wage, right? They would like a higher minimum wage. And the reason they want a higher minimum wage really in the end is to please the labor unions, because when you have a higher minimum wage, this allows labor unions to go back to the employers and then jack up the rates on all of the other employment. It creates a base for labor unions to bargain against. That's why Richard Trumka of the AFL-CIO is very much in favor of the increased minimum wage, even though Trumka cannot explain why minimum wage won't result in fewer jobs. Here is Richard Trumka struggling to explain why minimum wage is actually good for people on MSNBC.
What is your response to the Congressional Budget Office saying more than 1 million people would actually lose their jobs if the wages increased to $15 an hour?
Well, first of all, we believe that the CBO assumptions on the scale of the job loss are just wrong and inappropriately inflated relative to what cutting-edge economic literature would indicate.
So fair enough to that point, but you also cited the CBO data in the arguments that you made for why it should be raised to the $15 minimum wage with reducing the overall. So why is the data valid in some points but not valid in others?
Because they use inappropriate assumptions.
Oh, so yeah, he doesn't have any explanation for why a minimum wage increase won't result in fewer jobs. But the good news is that Richard Trumka is super happy. Right? He's labor head, so he's very happy that virtually all policy is now being crafted in order to please the labor unions. Here's Trumka saying that Joe Biden is helping working people more than Trump did in 4 years. Okay, there's only one problem, which is wage rates in the United States escalated at the highest pace in decades under Donald Trump. So Trumka's just lying here, Richard Trumka.
I think he's done an incredible job so far. He's helped working people in the first 5 weeks more than the last administration did in 4 years, and some of the previous administrations did over their period of time. He understands the importance of collective bargaining and a fair wage for working people. He understands that a paycheck is more than just bringing home money for your family. It's about dignity and respect.
Okay, well, actually, you know what bring home a paycheck is? It's money, mostly. And if a job goes away, that person gets no money. But Richard Trumka doesn't care about that. He only cares about the members of his union. He's a union head. That's his job. And it's the job of the government to look at all of its citizens and try and treat them as individuals. But the government doesn't do that. Instead, you have Joe Biden catering to these union stops. And in just a second, we're going to be getting to the Biden White House, they continue to push forward nominees that are just not any good. First, why exactly are you giving big tech companies your personal data? Now would be a great time to take a stand. Protect your personal data from big tech with the VPN I trust for my online protection, ExpressVPN. You see, every device, whether you're on your phone, laptop, or TV, has a unique string of numbers called an IP address. When you search for stuff, watch videos, or even click a link, big tech companies can use that IP to track all your activity and tie it back to you. When I use ExpressVPN, my connection gets rerouted through their secure encrypted servers, so these companies can't see my IP address at all. My internet activity becomes anonymized, my network data is encrypted. The best part? You don't need to be tech savvy at all to use ExpressVPN. Just download the app on your phone or computer, tap one button, and you're now protected. So, protect your internet activity with the VPN I use every single day. Visit expressvpn.com/Ben. Get 3 extra months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/Ben to get 3 extra months for free. expressvpn.com/Ben. Go check them out right now. No reason for you to give the data that belongs to you over to big tech companies that really don't like you or your point of view. expressvpn.com/Ben. Go check them out right now. Alrighty. So meanwhile, Joe Biden's nominees continue to just be quite terrible. Neera Tanden was his nominee for the Office of Management and Budget, not particularly popular when she was the head of the Center for American Progress. There's no real reason why she was selected other than she happens to be very friendly with a lot of members of the Biden administration. It's pretty much the only reason. Ron Klain, who is the chief of staff to Joe Biden, he continues to maintain they want Neera Tanden, even though Neera Tanden is going down in flames here. I mean, Joe Manchin already came out against her. They just don't have the votes for her. But they have to pretend like they're going to keep pushing her anyway, even though it's obvious that her nomination is essentially dead on arrival. Here's Ron Klain pushing it anyway.
Neera Tanden would be a superb budget director. She'd be one of the most outstanding budget directors we've had. She knows policy. She knows all the how to get something done in Washington. She's a great candidate for the job, and certainly we're fighting our guts out to get her confirmed. If Neera Tanden is not confirmed, she will not become the budget director. We will find some other place for her to serve in the administration that doesn't require Senate confirmation. But let me be clear, we're going to get Neera Tanden confirmed.
Now, it is very enjoyable to see that their reaction to Congress doesn't want this person in the administration is, we'll appoint her to a position where it doesn't matter, right? We'll just do exactly what we want. So that is that bipartisanship, that unity that you've been feeling. They couldn't even get this person through their own party. And meanwhile, MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell continues to claim that the only reason that Neera Tanden is being opposed is because of sexism, which is weird because there are a bunch of people who have been confirmed and will be confirmed from the Biden administration who are in fact women. But apparently it's only Neera Tanden who's receiving this treatment. It must be because of her sex or something.
Some of your colleagues, Senator Manchin opposing her for her past tweets and for being too partisan. But these same people voted for Rick Grinnell, who's probably more toxic on Twitter than anyone else who's ever been confirmed to be an ambassador. And certainly the former president, Donald J. Trump, was the worst bullier in chief on Twitter.
So I think Neera
Is this
would be...
a case of sexism or...
Yeah, that's right, Andrea. It's because of sexism. Okay, first of all, Trump was elected. Second of all, Rick Grinnell was going for like an ambassador position. Everybody understands that ambassador positions are basically for friends of the president, right? If you want to become ambassador to the Bahamas, then you just give a bunch of money to Joe Biden. That's the way that works. And meanwhile, other nominees being pushed forward include Xavier Becerra. So Becerra is the former Attorney General of California. He is just awful. He's a person who went after David DeLayden for the great sin of revealing that Planned Parenthood was selling baby body parts. Xavier Becerra did in fact go after nuns. He now claims he didn't. So he says, I never sued any nuns. No, I didn't. I didn't sue any nuns. I will give you the entire story in a second.
I think I tried to say to Senator Grassley, I understand that Americans have different, deeply held beliefs on this particular issue, and I absolutely respect that. By the way, I have never sued the nuns, any nuns. I have taken on the federal government, but I've never sued any affiliation of nuns.
Well, I mean, here's the real story. Okay, so this is according to Rich Lowry. In a unanimous May 2016 decision, the Supreme Court overturned the lower court rulings against the nuns and said the government should be able to find a better arrangement. When Donald Trump got elected, his administration set about issuing a more complete exemption. This is for the Little Sisters of the Poor. Little Sisters of the Poor was a nunnery. It was a convent. And that organization said that they were not going to cover the contraceptive care of its employees because it's a Catholic organization. Nor are they going to fill out a form saying they would not cover the contraceptive care because that would result in the government covering the contraceptive care, which would violate their religion. When Trump got elected, his administration set about issuing a more complete exemption. It resolved the issue in late 2017 with a rule that no longer forced the sisters to participate in a scheme they considered immoral, while providing contraception coverage under Title X to anyone who as a result might lack it. The matter should have remained there after 5 years of litigation, up and down the court system, with a resolution that harmed no one. But Xavier Becerra had different ideas. So what did he do? First, Becerra sued after the nuns had already been through the ringer and promised, a little like the groundhog seeing his shadow, several more years of litigation. Second, the HHS exemption was federal. It didn't have to do with California. There's no harm to California, but California got involved anyway. Third, Becerra sought a crushing burden on the nuns. If they didn't sign on to an arrangement they believed violated their faith, Becerra wanted them, in keeping with the Obama mandate, to be subjected to daily fines that would add up to tens of millions of dollars annually. These are nuns. So, yeah, when he says he didn't sue the nuns, he defended the laws of California as the Attorney General of California that effectively tried to punish the nuns. Alrighty, in just 1 second, we're going to get to an organization that really cashed in this year. Really, really cashed in. We'll talk about that in 1 second. First, attention, savvy investors. Looking for predictable monthly cash flow? Is a 10% annualized immediate monthly payout good for starters? How about bonuses targeted to 21%? If you want the safety and security of a real estate investment, but without the hassles of being a landlord, you've probably heard of NRIA. NRIA is an industry-leading real estate development firm in its 15th year developing strategically located, low-risk, high-demand neighborhoods based on supply-demand imbalance. They're a great fit for safety-oriented investors who want cash flow and diversification into carefully chosen real estate. Learn more about the NRIA Real Estate Development Fund at nria.net or call 800-800-1414. That's 800-800-1414. An offer of securities is only made by the NRIA Private Placement Memorandum. Read it first. Past performance does not guarantee future results. NRIA is a real estate development firm. Learn more at nria.net. Alrighty, coming up. Many of the most put upon groups in our society, it turns out, have been raking it in over the past year. Wait until you hear how much money Black Lives Matter cleared last year as an organization. It's pretty astonishing. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Welcome back. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. So, the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation made more than $90 million. $90 million amid the unrest that swept the United States in 2020, according to John Brown, writing for The Daily Wire. The organization said, we want to uplift black joy and liberation, not just black death. We want to see black communities thriving, not just surviving. Beginning in 2020, BLM GNF began to build out its endowment with the goal of using investment in our communities as a way to improve the conditions of black life. Black Lives Matter had about $8.4 million worth of expenses last year that included staffing, operation, administrative expenses, civic engagement, programs, and field expenses. It has spent more than $22 million in grants to the organization's local chapters and ended the year flush with $60 million. This is the organization, okay? This is not the movement. The movement is not the organization, right? The movement is broader than the organization. The organization itself, whose founders have declared themselves Marxist, whose original platform discussed the destruction of the nuclear family, just received $90 million from people who didn't know any better, basically. I mean, the co-founder, Patrice Cullors, literally said that the organization was founded in conjunction with Marxist theory. And that organization just got a $90 million check from the American public. It turns out that maybe you should check where you're sending your money before you actually just send off the check. Seriously. Okay, meanwhile, Andrew Cuomo's career is swirling the toilet at this point. Ron Kim, an assembly member from New York, Democrat, he came out yesterday. He said that he is requesting a congressional oversight hearing on nursing home deaths. The justice come for Andrew Cuomo, and that right soon. Here's Ron Kim.
And commit to waiving all FOIL exemptions for the public and press today. With that, nationally, we are also requesting Congressmember Jerry Nadler today to officially open a congressional oversight hearing on this matter.
Okay, and it's not just Democrats. Fox News' Janice Dean. She slammed Cuomo over the cover-up. She said, listen, I have a parent who died in a nursing home, and he called me crazy, and he went after me, and now there needs to be an investigation, and this is exactly right.
The governor has blamed everyone except the man that signed the mandate. Everyone except the man that has been covering up the numbers. He's blamed God. He's blamed Mother Nature. He's blamed Fox News. He's blamed the New York Post. He's blamed the nursing home workers, those that went in there and tried to care for my loved ones when we could not go in or have wakes or funerals or have rights or hold their hands. We did not see them.
Okay, this is exactly right. So is this finally the time that Andrew Cuomo goes down? Probably. I think he's toast. I think Andrew Cuomo has a very, very serious problem on his hands. I think there are a lot of ambitious politicians in New York who want that job, ranging from Bill de Blasio to the illustrious AOC. I think there are a lot of people in New York who want to see him go. He is a bully. He is a thug with regard to the other politicians in his own party. I think a lot of people don't like Andrew Cuomo very much, and that is coming out right now. Now, meanwhile, the reality of the radicalism of the Biden administration just makes itself manifest every single day. And now it turns out that another Biden nominee is pretty radical. According to Chrissy Clark, writing for Daily Wire, President Joe Biden's nominee for U.S. Associate Attorney General called for the elimination of police officers from all schools. Vanita Gupta is the CEO and president of the Leadership Council on Civil and Human Rights, has been tapped by the Biden administration to help lead the U.S. Attorney General office. In a 416-page report obtained by the Federalist, Gupta's organization recommended banning law enforcement from schools entirely. That report openly advocated, quote, ending the use of police in schools as a solution to student discipline, which of course has ended up really solidly in the case of school shootings where there's nobody on campus who can actually stop criminality. The organization is advocating for measures that mimic the demands of politicians and activists who want to, quote unquote, defund the police. Instead, they're looking for community policing initiatives like after-school programs and mental health professionals. Gupta's report claims school districts are, quote, increasingly turning disciplinary matters over to school police, which allegedly leads to increased arrest and use of excessive force on students of color, students with disabilities, and students who identify as LGBTQ. So naturally, the problem is the cops. Always and forever. This is not, it is maddening to me that we spent a year talking about how Joe Biden was going to be the moderate. And the answer was there were no moderates. It was a trick question. There were no moderates in that race. And yet the media kept saying that Joe Biden was a moderate. He was a unifier. He certainly was not going to go off the deep end. His nominees are radically to the left. They're all radically to the left. His policies are radically to the left. This is not a moderate administration, not in any way, shape, or form. It's why Bernie Sanders is celebrating. It's why AOC is celebrating. They understand that Joe Biden was always a Trojan horse for leftism. And the media kept parroting that because they knew too. Joe Biden is not radical in spite of the media. He is radical, and the media knew he was going to be radical, and they lied to you because this is what your media do. All your media do, all day long, is lie about their own narrative and lie about the agenda. That's all that's going on here. Alrighty, so we'll be back here tomorrow with much, much more on the latest news. One of those pieces of news that we have yet to discuss is the Manhattan DA obtaining Donald Trump's tax returns. What does that mean for Trump? What does that mean going forward for the Republican Party in 2024? I'm sure we will get into that. In the meantime, go out and buy yourself a Mr. Potato Head doll because they're here today, but gone tomorrow. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.